Hey, shalom. So, we are continuing with our directed Hebrew immersion in the book of Qoheleth. Qoheleth, known popularly as Ecclesiastes. We have finished chapter 1. Not bad. Today we begin chapter 2. And may it be that the God of the universe, the maker of the heavens and the earth, will bless your learning and get you as excited about the sacred tongue as I am. I really hope you all will continue with us and you will grow and bring friends, and we can spread this movement to learn biblical Hebrew, not just for Jews, not just for anyone who is a son or daughter of Israel, but also for our friends, Christian and Jewish friends. All right. So, continuing on in chapter 2, it says, oh, hold on. Okay, just a sec. I will pause. All right, let's see if it works now. I am glad we are pre-recording, so you didn't have to wait through all of that. There we go, working now. Seems like with PowerPoint, it has to be killed at least once now, and then these special tools will work. So here we are, Qoheleth, chapter 2, verse 1. Amarti ani belibi. Amarti ani belibi. Amarti. So here, of course, we have the T ending to the verb. And this really indicates first person singular. So I amalt. The verb is amal, which, if you've been with us for any period at all, you'll know this one already. If you're new, take heart. Thursdays are usually a little bit more difficult Hebrew material. So amal is say, although sometimes it means like to eyeball, like to see, but this is a very old ending. In this case, it means say. So amar said, T, I, amarti, I said. And if it helps you, you can think of the E as like being the end of ani. We have the word ani. Ani. And so you can just think of that E part at the end. That should remind you the E at the end of ani, the long chirik with the yod there of what we have here. E can be a mnemonic for you. So, or of the end of anochi, it also ends in E. So, amarti, I said, ani. Now, we already have the I in I said. And ani actually means I, right? That's what we have right here. Ani. Amarti is I said. And so now he says I. So this is probably some kind of emphasizing pronoun here. Wait, one moment. Hold on just a sec. Hold on. Let me get my glasses back on. I have a distraction here. Bear with me for just a second. I will pause. All right. Dealt with. So amarti, I said, ani, I, belibi. Be is inseparable preposition. Usually it means in, or that can mean other things like with, against, from, etc. In the lev of E. The lev of E. The heart of me. My heart. אמרתי אני בלבי. I said. I. So I myself, probably, that what that emphasizing pronoun is. Or I said myself, or I myself said in my mind, in my heart. It means like he thought to himself, that voice that's in you, right? So what is it he's going to say? Lecha na. Lecha na. So lecha, this you've surely heard before. Lecha. Lecha is like go now. Go. We have this with the famous saying to Avram Avinu when God tells him, Lech lecha, get yourself up and go, or go for yourself. So lecha is actually a command form from halach. The hay is gone, right? So we only have a couple root letters left from halach. We have the lamed. Oops, sorry. That was strange. PowerPoint woes again. It's so good we are pre-recording. There we go. We have the lecha, we have the lamed, right? And we have the kaf, but we're missing the hay. So the verb is hay, lamed, kaf, halach. The hay would be here, and it's gone. So lecha is an imperative form, a command form. Go, saying go. Na is a particle that it really kind of depends on who's talking. Na, na 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 na. Okay, so if you're talking to God, some of you have expressed your interest in doing free form biblical Hebrew prayers to God, and that's a great goal. Now, one thing you should learn is to say na a lot, because when you're talking to the Almighty, na means please. 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 But talking to a human, it can either mean please or it can mean now. So he's got either of these meanings. Please or now. So lecha na. Go now. Anaskha. Anaskha. So the verb here is nasa, to put to the test. To test. Noon. Seen. Pardon me, samach. The other S sound. And hey. Nasa. Not to be confused with nasa with an aleph, which means to lift or to bear. So this is a lamed hay verb, and the hay's gone away. And you'll note there is a dagesh in the samech. There's a dagesh in there. Oh man, my tool is not behaving correctly. This is getting annoying. Interesting. I think I know how to make it come back when I want it to. I switch to another app and come back, and then it seems to be okay. Okay. So, nise, or the nun samech hey with the strong dagesh in the middle in the PL form is to put to the test. To put to the test. And the aleph at the beginning, when you have an aleph prefixed to the verb, again, this reminds us of ani or anochi, the aleph in those words. So over here, the e part at the end of ani, when we saw the t at the end of a verb, of a perfect verb, that reminded us of ani, I. Over here, we're having an imperfect verb. So index volunteers, you might want to take note of the imperfect verb, first person form, singular. So we take the aleph now from the front of ani, and we prefix that to the beginning of the verb. That's what this guy is doing here. Okay, we've taken away the aleph from ani, from I. So anase would mean I will put to the test. But now we have something else happening here. This actually says, in our auditory learning, anaskha. Okay. Anaskha. So let's colorize that properly. We have an older spelling for an inseparable preposition. I mean a pronominal suffix. Boy, I just spat out the wrong term. Don't write that down. Pronominal suffix. As I try to walk and chew gum at the same time. By the way, special thanks to all of our supporters out there. I really appreciate those of you who are standing with us financially. It's always a struggle, what we do, and there are never sufficient finances. So if you are learning from what we do here, you find it beneficial, please consider becoming a patron on my Patreon over at patreon.com/Hebrew literacy. That would be very helpful. Or you could send a one-time gift if you just want to give one time using paypal.me/Hebrew literacy. Or if you're in the Philippines, you can just send a donation using Paymaya to Hebrew, and we'll get that. All right, so the cha ending, usually we'll see this like this, as a kaf sofit. Usually that's how it kind of manifests. But because we have the hey, the older hey here ending, that's how the text indicates an ah at the end of a word. It used to be with a hey before the diacritical Nycud system was developed. So anaskha, I will put to the test cha, you. I will put you to the test. Just decided that might look a little better that way. Let me zoom in for our cell phone users or anyone else on a tiny screen. Maybe have a really, really tiny TV. One of those old, the 4-inch pocket TVs or whatever. Anaskha. I will nasa cha. I will put you to the test. ve, that's with. So remember, up above we had beit over here, meaning in. But now we've got it over here, meaning with. So here it's with. Simcha. Simcha, I have a cat, a girl cat named Simcha. Simcha, although oftentimes we say Simcha, right? Oh yeah, I had a friend, an elderly gentleman, may he rest in peace, when I was in university, Dr. Seymour Simchas. So, Ashkenazi fellow. So, Simcha means happiness. Oftentimes you'll see it together with sason, like joy and happiness. Sason v'simcha. So, anaskha, I will put to the test you, with simcha, with joy, with happiness. Ureih. Ureih. Hold on, my glasses are a bit smudged. So the we have a normal vav, and re'eh. Re'eh, from the verb ra'ah. Ra'ah means he saw. Re'eh is an imperative. See, look, like investigate kind of. And see, vetov. We have another inseparable preposition, beit. Probably in here. Tov. In tov, goodness. Or with goodness. It could be with, but I don't see how see with. So in and see in goodness, maybe look into, investigate goodness. Vehine, ve, and hine, behold, gam hu havel. Gam, also, who, he or it, and then we have to infer the English was or is havel. And the word is actually havel. And what has happened is, because of the siluk, that guy, he causes the short vowel segol to lengthen into a kamatz, which is considered a long vowel. So that's what's going on here. So the siluk, that guy right there, let me zoom in. This guy, the vertical bar, ta'am, accent mark, the way that our ancestors memorized these texts was rhythmically and musically as well. And for those who weren't singing, the rhythm was really important. And so when you hit that last word, they hit it really hard. It's kind of like, you know how every word in English and in many languages, apart from tonal languages, we have one syllable or more than one syllable in the word, typically one syllable, which is called the tone syllable, or it expresses a little bit more harshness to that syllable than the other syllables, right? For example, the word syllable. In English, we usually like to put the accent. We make the tone syllable, usually. The language prefers it on the first part of the word. Doesn't always happen, but often it is. So even the word syllable, people sometimes joke about syllable, right? You might hear syllable or syllable. Nobody puts the tone on those syllables. The first syllable in the word syllable is where we put the tone. Syllable, syllable. Well, with Hebrew, you've surely learned by now, we prefer it on the end. Not always, but often on the end of the word, right? So it moves to the end. It's simcha, right? Also, we have a similar concept for the sentence in biblical Hebrew, for memorization purposes, most likely, where the end of a clause gets that word is featured more strongly than all the other words in the clause, right? So that's the word with the etnachta, the little fishbone, or pardon me, the wishbone looking sign. The etnachta will look like this is a etnachta. This guy, oops, over here. It doesn't look so much like a wishbone here. Oftentimes it is though. Oftentimes it will look like this. See? Kind of more like a wishbone, or some printers will make it taller. See? So this guy is showing that according to the Talmud, Tractate Sophorim, he owns all the words before it in that clause, right? So it's the end of the clause. It's like a semicolon in English. So that also causes vowels to lengthen. And the other one that causes a word to be accented more strongly than all the other words in the clause is the last one at the end of the verse, which almost always is a saluk, though we have seen etnachta in very short verses here. So the saluk, that vertical bar. Do not confuse it with the meteg, meaning bridle, or as the late Dahoud argues, he thinks it actually means muzzle. But the thing that you put in the horse's mouth, or the thing you put on a animal's mouth so it won't bite or make noise. It could be either of those things. So it looks like this, but that's not what this is. Okay. So that's why havel became havel. It's not a different word. Just if you haven't seen that before, that's what's going on. Okay, I'm going to give you just a moment to process. Maybe I'll zoom out, see if you have any comments or questions. I just realized I didn't translate havel for you. Havel is like a vapor, like a vapor. Oftentimes translated in older translations as vanity. But the idea isn't vanity like, oh, I look so great. You're looking at yourself in the mirror. It's more like futility, right? Like a vapor, like a mist, a havel, heaven. This same word can be used sometimes to refer even to idolatry, meaning there are nothingness, or a shav, making an abstract thought concrete. All right, let's continue. Qoheleth, Ecclesiastes, chapter 2, verse 2, Hebrew. Lischok, amarti. מהולל, לשחוק, לשחוק. So, we have an inseparable preposition here. That is the lamed. By the way, let me know. I hope the sound is good today. I'm doing the same thing I did yesterday, so if there's any difference, that would be very interesting to note. You guys were positive about the sound yesterday. Also, please take note, this is coming at you in UHD 4K ultra high definition. So if you have a big TV or other big screen, feel free to turn it on over there, but make sure to select UHD so from the gearbox on YouTube in case it doesn't send it to you that way. If it looks pixelated or something, you're watching a lower resolution on a higher resolution device, and you just have to tell YouTube that you want it in UHD. So the lamed usually means 2 or 4. Those are the most common meanings. It can have other meanings too. And shchok, this is actually a. Oops, my microphone fell. Hold on. Just talking about the sound being good, and then I toppled over the microphone. This is actually a what we call an infinitive. Okay. Oh, actually, in this case, it's not. Oh, I apologize. Look at that. Oh, yeah, shchok. Yeah, it's actually a noun from the verb shachak. Shachak is to laugh. It looked kind of like the form lishmo, you see. So it was looking to me like it was an actual infinitive, but that would work too. Lischok, to laugh, right? But here it's probably for laughter. For laughter. Shachok meaning laughter. For laughter, or perhaps merriment, or whimsicalness. Amarti. Amarti. And here we have that T ending again, which should remind you of the ending of ani. The E part reminds us of that, right? Amarti. I said. Meholal. Meholal. Meholal is interesting. It's from the verb halal, number 3, which kind of has the idea of like infatuation. But this is a very rare binyan, a very rare mobile form. It's a mobile phone. It's a very rare participle here, a binyan called po'al, po'al, which is by many grammars just considered a form of the PL, right? And the po'al of halal expresses foolish or senseless. So meholal, lischok amarti meholal, for laughter or merriment, can be more abstract like that. I said is senseless. By the way, it's interesting when you remember when I think it's when David Hamelech. Oh, it might not be. No, that might be a different thing. Oh yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Remember when King David, when he pretended to be crazy? That is actually a form of this verb. It's the hitpolel form. The hitpolel. Hitholalelu is they pretended to be mad or they acted like madmen. So King David, this verb, doing it to himself, right, is he's making himself senseless. He's making himself foolish, right? So he's acting like a crazy person. It's somewhere in First Samuel. So if anybody has the reference, maybe share it in the chat. That'd be nice. Okay. So lischok, amarti, meholal. For merriment or laughter, amarti, I said, is meholal, is senseless. Perhaps revelry. I mean, literally, it's laughter, but it's this whole idea of just enjoying. It doesn't necessarily mean it's some kind of just superficial fun. According to Rabbi Fox, he writes in his commentary, revelry, Hebrew shachok, literally laughter, stands for merrymaking. He points out the example in Psalm 126, verse 2, for example, shachok refers to the joy of the returning exiles, right? So it looks like laughter, but it's really, really about enjoyment. It's very famous. We have this in the Sidur. Az yamale shachok pinu uleshonenu rina. Then will be filled our mouths with shachok. Uleshonenu rina. And our tongues with rina. Like, la, 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 like a victory shout. Az yomaru vagoyim. Then it will be said among the goyim, among the nations, Higdil Adonai la'asot im ele. Adonai has magnified doing so with these. Yes, amen. And may it be so in our days and in our age and even in Israel now. And let us say amen. Ulsimchah. So we have a normal vav here. Not doing anything strange, nothing to see here. It's just that it's an u form. Who knows why before I tell you? If you remember on your own, it's better. So be thinking about why it's an u. I'll tell you in a moment. So usually the vav wants to have a shwa under it when it connects to a word, right? It expects to look like this, what I've drawn over on the right. Vav and shwa. The problem with this word is the word already starts with a consonant that has a schwa, and that is not allowed. So this is our bump schwa rule. You remember that guy? Bump schwa? That says if the word starts with a b, m, or p, or a schwa, then the u in bump tells us that mnemonic tells us the vav will change into a shurik. That's what this letter is called. It's a vav with a dot in it making an oo sound. And please, please, please do not be like the senseless masses. So often I hear from people a few times a month out here on the YouTube channel who think that ancient wow was always an o or an oo, and so they try to force it into God's name and all these other weird stuff just to be different, it seems. Like anything other than the status quo of how Jews have maintained the language. It just, I really think, I'm not saying that everyone who holds these views is this way, but I really think that these views are driven by anti Semitism, right? There's, there's a lot of pretenders out there pretending to be related through bloodline to our ancestor Jacob, but they have no claim to this in any way, shape, or form. There's no history of it. And I think there's some jealousy about the language that Jews are the only people who maintained Hebrew, who kept it alive, so to speak. So it's kind of one of the proofs that we really are who we say we are, descendants from Jacob. We are a testimony that God is true, though every man be a liar, and that Am Yisrael Chai, the people of Israel yet live. And so it finds its way. It's interesting to see how it seeps its way into these weird little ways of intentionally pronouncing things wrongly or differently just to be different than Jews. And again, I'm not saying everyone who does this has that motivation. I personally believe this is the motivation for the enemy trying to mess up the Hebrew language like that to screw people up. Because I tell you now, I've never met anyone, never, in my 30 years of teaching biblical Hebrew, not full time, but teaching it, who has one of these weird pronunciations who is fluent in Hebrew. or really has any deep understanding of how the language works. It may happen soon. We're really in the internet age now, but that should tell you something. And if someone's teaching you to say words weirdly, like different than the way that all Jewish nusachs say them, well, that is against the spirit of Kalal Yisrael. Many things we do for the sake of Kalal Yisrael. Like we will pronounce it the way, I'm not coming at you with Ashkenaz pronunciation for the sake of Kalal Yisrael. And even my bar mitzvah rabbi taught us it's best to, when in the community, to say things with a Sephardic pronunciation, because that is the way it is done in Israel for the sake of Kalal Yisrael, right? So we give up our own traditional, slightly different ways of pronouncing things for the sake of all of Israel, right? For unity. Not saying there can't be different traditions here and there. And so you find the polar opposite of that. When people come along, just mutilating the pronunciation, inventing their own vowels, trying to Arabicize the Hebrew, for example, I highly recommend, if someone tries to tell you to say things in this way and you know it's differently than the way that Israel pronounces it, that we Jews pronounce it, probe a little bit. Do your own little bit of nisa, nun, samachet, putting to the test, and see. Open randomly a Hebrew Bible and hand them a passage from the Torah, and don't let them see any English translation, and see if they can read and tell you what it means without any context. Don't let them see the chapter verse. Just hand it to them. And if they cannot, then why listen to a rebel like this? All right, I just felt moved to talk about that for a bit, so hopefully I didn't step on too many toes. But maybe toes need to be stepped on sometime. Ulsimchah. And le, we have another le. Again, 2 or 4. Simcha, joy. Ma zo osah. Ma. Ma. Ma means what? 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 Zo. Now, zo is an interesting word. We don't see this too often. And I think, again, I pointed out to some of my Hebrew students when we're going through First Kings that the speaker in First Kings sometimes has a little bit of a different usage in his vocabulary and his grammar. Sometimes he leaves certain things off that we expect. And here, I think if this is the same guy, or at least from the same region and time period, I think we see something similar happening here with zo. Zo. So zo is equivalent to zot. Zot. Meaning this. Ma zo. And maybe I'll tell you you might notice there's a dagesh in here. You guys see the dagesh? I'll zoom in a bit for you cell phone users. See that dagesh? The reason that's there is because of the ma. This is, if you want to Google this is called the interrogative particle. Ma. It doesn't always mean what, it can mean how, other kinds of question marks too. So the pointing of the word, and actually the pointing here, sometimes it's meh. It's not always ma. And sometimes it's, like in Ashkenaz Hebrew, mo, there'll be like a kamatz here, the T-looking vowel instead. So the pointing of this word, meaning the vowel that we add to when we say pointing, we're talking about the vowel, and the dagesh afterwards, or whether there's not one or not, it loosely, actually pretty closely follows the rules for the definite article. So if you know those rules, how to point it, you don't have to. This is directed immersion. We don't need to get that low, that to that level. But in case you're wondering why there's a dagesh here and why the ah, maybe you'll see this as meh. Sometimes with the sagol, that'll happen when this first one's an ayin. So it's following those same rules. So if you learn the set of rules, you can apply it also here. And I think I have a lesson over in my playlist here on Hebrew literacy in the language snippets that talks about the definite article and how it's pointed. So if you learn that, you kind of get two birds with one stone. Although I don't really like that saying because I like birds. I don't want to be killing them with stones. But anyway, that's what's happening here. Mazo, same as mazot. What? What this? Osah, osah. Literally, what this? The verb is rasa. You know asa, right? Asa. Ayin, seen, hey, to do. And what we have is a participle here. This is like, what is this doing? Osah. It's like saying, what good is it? What's the purpose of this? Or what good is that? What does this do? Okay, so that's that. Oh my, how time flies. It looks like we're at a good place to stop now. Let me just erase my chicken scratch that happens when I touch the screen. One more comment I'd like to share about meholal, the last word on the top of the screen there. Rabbi Fox writes quite a bit about it. He understands like it's mad. And he points out that Hebrew meholal sounds like mahul, which means mixed. He says, quote, this word play was the cue for Qoheleth Rabbah, that's the midrash that follows along Qoheleth, to explore various historical instances where laughter and joy was, quote, mixed, unquote, such as the joy of Elisheva, who married Aharon in Exodus 6:23. Though she was righteous, her joy in her family's exalted priestly station was shattered when her sons entered the Mishkan, the tabernacle, to burn incense unlawfully and were killed. Vayikra 10. Her joy collapsed in a moment through no fault of her own. Such tales attempt to give historical specificity to Qoheleth's generalities. And in this case, they are to the point. Qoheleth's happiness is mixed because he despairs of the constancy and significance of pleasure, though it is good. Rabbi Pinchas quotes an aphorism, quote, if the gold is alloyed, what use is pleasure, unquote, and tells a tale of a bridegroom who was killed at his wedding. His father kept it secret until the time came to tell the guests that they should say the benediction of mourners, not the one for a bridegroom at the funeral. Rabbi Zakkai preached the verse, quote, of laughter, shachok, I said, it's mad. Mehulal, of merriment. What good is that? Ma zo asa. The rabbinic commentators shared Qoheleth's tragic sense of life's fragility. Shalom, shalom. I will see you guys on Shabbat. Be well and be blessed.